Here is a nice long report from the World Resources Institute, WRI. I love their reports. They do a good job, and it gives me a great resource for reporting some interesting, important findings related to climate science, climate change, climate solutions, mitigation, adaptation, and so on. This is on an important topic: opportunities for methane mitigation in agriculture. Right? So we know that agriculture overall is about 25% or more of the total emissions. Out of that, methane from rice paddies and livestock is fairly significant, and we always have to remember that methane is about 25 times more powerful as a greenhouse gas compared to CO2. So we want to reduce it, or at least capture it and use it, let's say, as biogas, and then release it into CO2 or capture CO2, because then going from methane to CO2 would still reduce the global warming potential. So technological, economic, and regulatory considerations are given. As usual, I'm going to be very brief because it's a very nice long report. You want to follow up with that, that's great. I'm just going to give you enough of the most salient points, as usual, salient according to me. So the report is available online. I love cows. I grew up with them, actually bullocks, because we had a bullock cart to sell our firewood, and I used to drive it sometimes when I was allowed to. But this is the industrial production process, milking or beef, whatever, and that is not very nice looking at all, trapped in a cage like that. But this is more fun to walk around with them in the monsoon rain. This doesn't look like India. The hat is probably, anyway. Let's read the executive summary and then quickly run through some tables which are very informative. And they are detailed tables, and I'm going to be brief with the tables as well. The Global Methane Pledge aims to reduce global anthropogenic methane emissions by 30% by 2030 relative to 2020 levels. With increasing population and demand for food, emissions from agriculture are set to rise. Overall, methane from enteric fermentation, manure management, and rice cultivation contribute the most to agricultural methane emissions. Effective solutions exist that can reduce the intensity of agricultural methane emissions per unit of food produced while improving crop and livestock yields. So it's not just about tunnel vision on reducing methane emissions, but also helping farmers with crop yields and livestock yields. This report reviews the state of the science, methane mitigation potential, and mitigation costs to enable accelerated implementation of available mitigation solutions. So if they're already available, then it's a matter of implementing them, social acceptance, transitions, and so on. The highlights of the report: Global Methane Pledge aims to reduce global anthropogenic methane emissions by 30% by 2030 relative to 2020 level, with agriculture contributing approximately half of global anthropogenic methane emissions. Reducing agricultural methane emissions is crucial, of course, for achieving climate goals. The report provides a comprehensive guide of the most promising technologies, updating with recent evidence. The analysis identifies priorities based on their promise for cost-effective and extensive mitigation. Numerous promising solutions exist that can lower agricultural methane emissions. So we'll look at rice, beef, dairy, sheep, and goat production, also in improving crop yield and livestock. Many of the most promising methods have only been implemented in limited quantities to date, so technologies would benefit from combining implementation with ongoing R&D and technological refinements. Our estimates find that several promising opportunities for methane mitigations are likely to incur a relatively low cost of mitigation per ton of CO2. So you always have to look for cost of mitigation as well. Widespread adoption of these solutions requires robust private sector engagement, strong government support, and harmonized regulatory framework. This is true for pretty much everything we consider. So I will already start being brief with the text. So some of the main points from the executive summary. The Global Methane Pledge already we talked about how it is planning to reduce, and agriculture contributes approximately to half. Methane from enteric fermentation, manure management, and rice cultivation contribute the most to agricultural methane emissions. There are some details in the text that I'm not reading. Solutions exist that can reduce the intensity of agricultural methane emissions per unit of food produced while improving crop yields and livestock products per hectare. Okay, obviously the words are similar to the highlights, but it's worth re-emphasizing. Understanding the state of the science, methane mitigation potential and mitigation costs is critical to accelerate implementation of existing solutions. Additional findings in the report also include applicability of methane reduction solutions and how they vary by region and type of agricultural production system. Developing economies should focus on improving feed efficiency through enhanced digestibility of forage and crop residues, and we'll look at this in more detail with tables. Technologies such as methane inhibitor feed additives show promise in significantly lowering methane emissions from livestock, so developing economies and developed economies both can use this. We are all in this together. While anaerobic digestion can probably reduce methane from manure management by half, it is expensive, and common use of purpose-grown crops to increase solid content can result in net carbon costs. So you have to always worry about life cycle analysis and also other impacts on methods for separation of solid and liquid manure and acidification impacts. There are well-established methods to reduce rice methane, but their implementation will require site-specific projects and support. So that is always in terms of producing details at locations, local specific, region specific information. You know, rice is a highly emitting agricultural sector, paddies, but to reduce them, if solution depends on where you are, then you have to provide location specific information. While this report provides general strategies to reduce agricultural methane emissions, there is a need to map our solutions for each country or region based on their major agricultural production practices to achieve maximum methane reductions. So you will need policy, financing, incentivizing, and including engaging farmers to support them in their role that we want them to play in mitigating their methane emissions. Generally, a more comprehensive and accurate quantification of methane reduction benefits offered by each intervention needs a high investment in research and development as well as open data sharing so that the interventions may be tailored to meet specific mitigation targets. So lack of data is an issue. Coming closer to the end of the executive summary, creating the right enabling conditions is critical to ensure the wide-scale adoption of these solutions. Private sector engagement, government support, finance, policies, and incentives as well. Here are some cute pigs. Pigs are supposed to be very intelligent, and I know a good joke about it, but this is not the place. It's not dirty, but it's just a bit cruel, maybe. A high degree of innovation in food systems, faster regulatory pathways, and enabling funding mechanisms are some of the factors that can accelerate methane reduction. That's very good. Let's just jump straight into looking at some findings. And as I said, there is a lot of text behind each of these in terms of details that I'm going to skip. Methane emissions, sources and reduction solutions. So sources, enteric methane reduction strategies, improved livestock efficiency, methane inhibition, and other emerging solutions. And these are the technologies and practices: improved feed quality and health, improved digestibility of crop residues, and some of these other things we will look as we go along. But each table is long, so I'm not going to be reading each one of them. So second on the methane sources, manure management, manure collection and storage, of course, manure treatment, additives, and other emerging solutions. Rice cultivation, you need yield improvements, changes to irrigation management, soil management, and other emerging solutions. So there are alternate wetting and drying approaches for changing irrigation management, mid-season drainage, drip irrigation, and yield improvements via breed selection, breeding or hybrid varieties, and so on. And soil management can be done with off-season plowing of rice straw, biochar amendment, direct seeded rice, replacing urea with ammonia based fertilizers, and nitrification inhibitors, because that would release N2O as well. Okay, so let's just move. As you saw, I'm going to be brief with the table, so you want to follow up if you want. Just to touch on some global numbers, global anthropogenic methane emissions by sources, 100% is about 352 million tons of methane emissions as of 2019. As you know, methane is short-lived, 10 years compared to N2O and CO2, which are multiple centuries, and it's non-uniformly distributed, not a well-mixed gas, is a lifetime of about 10 years and global warming potential of about 25 compared to CO2. Okay, so enteric fermentation here, so this is the total agriculture at almost 50%. Biofuels, manure management, biomass burning, and rice cultivation, as we said. Energy sector from oil and gas and coal mining produces some. Landfills produce quite a bit of it, and then there are industries and transports as well. The effectiveness of enteric methane solutions depends on the type of production system, the life cycle stage of the animals, so you need information at that level. Methods and effects of improving feed efficiency, improving feed quality and animal health, improving crop residue digestibility, etc. will be shown as tables. Manure management solutions offer valuable co-benefits such as bedding material for animals and increased fertilizer value in addition to methane reduction. You always want to track co-benefits, because when you do cost-benefit analysis, you have to count them as well. If you are there is need for seeking finance and so on. Potential increases in output per animal and reductions in methane emissions per unit of food produced. So it could be milk or meat. Improved pastures with higher digestibility and nitrogen content. So Brazil, example, humid grazing dairy, humid grazing beef, and there are some numbers in terms of increase in output and reductions in emissions per kilogram of output, but I'm not going to dwell on those. Just look at the items and then follow up with the report if you are interested. High digestibility crop residues from dual purpose crops, India, mixed arid dairy. Higher quality crop residues from dual purpose crops, crop byproducts and quality grasses. So there are examples from Ethiopia, China, India, and China as well, where the difference is mixed humid dairy here and mixed humid beef here. Okay, so very nice synthesis of all the available information. Summary of enteric methane reduction practices and recommendations. So improved feed efficiency is shown here with some details. So technology and practice to reduce emissions, such as improving digestibility and quality of feed and forages. Some description, reported ranges of methane emission reduction 8 to 44%. Co-benefits, of course, market readiness level and regulatory status. It's already market ready. Cost of mitigation in terms of tons of CO2 equivalent dollars, not estimated. Practical challenges remain. Next steps and research needs are pointed out. Challenging to implement at scale, especially in regions that rely heavily on low-quality byproducts such as crop residues as primary feed ingredients and are predominantly smallholder farms. So all of these things could work for rich, massive industrial dairy farms where there are troughs and caged animals being fed. Opportunities for low and middle income countries to improve feeding practices by upgrading locally available and low cost resources via cooperatives and small businesses. Again, the system has to be set up, incentives provided, regulations, private partnerships, government incentives, etc. Right? Methane inhibition, then, this is 3-nitroxypropanol, a trade name for Bover. The technology, description, reported range, again the same kind of details, and just keep that in mind. It's a methane inhibition agent, and the technology is there. And let's see, is it ready? Practical challenges, next steps, and market readiness. Market ready and approved for use in 57 countries, including EU and EEA, UK, Paraguay, Australia, Brazil, and so on and so forth. Okay. More on methane inhibition using Asparagopsis, which is redweed. So it's a Methane Global's Methane Tamer TM. So there are multiple products. And just to look at market readiness, market ready, approved some places. Cost may still be higher outside of native habitats of red seaweed. So it's not accessible to all in terms of just the habitat suitability of the red seaweed. Okay. Methane inhibition, again based on nitrates. So there are other multiple Cargill's calcium nitrate silver. Is it market ready? Market ready, approved in EU, UK, and Brazil. So different settings, more tropical versus mid latitude. So it is accepted, I guess. Whenever it says market ready and approved, it means there is a commercial operation. You have to figure out whether they are subsidized or whether they are profitable. Methane inhibition through lipids supplementation, such as vegetable oils, fish oil, tallow, distillers, grains with soluble seeds, and so on. Okay, DGS is distillers grain solubility. This is market ready as well. No regulatory requirements in place. Secondary plant metabolites, so many options there. It is market ready and available and approved in some countries. These may also be supplemented in a natural form, such as taniferous forages, and there is some cost in each case that I'm not reading. You have to go and compare to see whether that's accounted for additional sequestration and some other market value or market subsidies or whatever. So methane vaccines, in terms of methane inhibition, what is the market readiness? It looks promising, but there are challenges. More animal demonstrations on efficiency needed. Multiple research papers have failed to demonstrate efficacy, and funding is mostly within the corporate sector R&D, which means people are looking for a commercial market, so they will keep trying till they figure out whether they can sell it for profit or not. There are also generic approaches like low methane emitting breed selection. It looks promising again, but there are challenges. Use in developing countries is unknown, but cost is high. Anyways, uncertainty around heritability of low methane trait. So you can create a breed, but if it doesn't get passed on through the genes, then you may be struggling. A summary of enteric methane reduction practices and recommendation. Other emerging solutions such as wearable devices by ZELP. Let's read what that means. A patented wearable device by ZELP that converts methane into CO2 in real time is worn on the nose of the animal, reducing the impact of methane's warming. Awesome. Is it market ready? It's promising, and it has some cost of $19 to $34 per ton of CO2 equivalent for 60% reduction. Practical challenges: animal welfare and hence consumer acceptance of the technology may be an issue, and proof of economies of scale is needed. But nonetheless, it's an exciting idea of wearable device that just on the fly converts methane to CO2. Okay. Reducing methane emissions from manure management is the second section. Methane emissions occur when manure is stored in wet conditions, creating an anaerobic environment that promotes the activity of methane-producing microorganisms. Consequently, the level of emissions depends on whether the manure is managed in wet or dry conditions. Methane makes up nearly 80% of the GHG emissions from wet manure storage systems. This chapter explores technologies and practices to reduce methane emissions from manure management during storage. Let's go through this one and then end this podcast, and we'll need probably at least another one, maybe two. Okay. So this is for reducing methane from manure management and with recommendations. Technology, more frequent manure removal from barns, and market readiness. It's ready, only requires changes to management practices. What are the barriers to adoption? Involves some additional retrofitting and labor costs, so cost benefit analysis is going to be required. Requires sufficient outdoor storage capacity, adding to costs, so whether it will be adopted depends on such details. Impermeable artificial storage cover. It is market ready and applicable to most production systems for beef, dairy and swine. Manure storage and handling interventions in terms of natural permeable cover as opposed to impermeable artificial storage cover, so there is no leakage. It is market ready. While these systems are extensively studied for methane reduction, they are more effective for ammonia reduction and not methane, so it's a technology that's being adapted from from ammonia to methane. Biofilter ventilation, either a barn ventilation or covered pond biomethane conversion, and it's market ready. Don't know whether it's being sold already. Solid liquid separation, it's market ready as well. Cost can be high. Anaerobic digestion, this seems to be quite common actually, and you can get energy generation from, capture the methane and use it as biogas, and carbon credits as well. And small low technology methods are broadly adopted in Asia but may not reduce emissions in the way they are used. Higher technology methods have substantial, although not widespread adoption, typically with large subsidies. Whenever there are subsidies, you have to see whether market penetration increases to make it self-sustained, or whether there is a life cycle analysis that says subsidies are worth it if you consider externalities of the emissions that would otherwise be produced. High capital cost and maintenance costs, so those are always handicaps. Aeration, of course, seems fairly straightforward. Aeration is a well-developed technology in wastewater treatment. Its applicability to manure management needs techno-economic assessments. A type of circulator system. My mind is working on autopilot. A type of circulator system and more advanced systems are implemented on several farms in the US and are relatively more common, but nitrous oxide and ammonia emissions may increase with this approach, and high operating costs for running and maintaining the equipment as well. Composting, of course, is market ready, quite widely used, I suspect. Impermeable cover and flare, you just burn it off. Produce CO2, which is less potent, it's market ready. Cost can be high though. Coagulation or flocculation, you can read up exactly what chemically that means. They are well developed for wastewater treatment. Its efficacy in manure management needs further economic evaluation, so not quite market ready. Acidification, this is also helps with reducing ammonia emissions and improved fertilizer use, but it's promising in terms of market readiness. Uncertainties around long-term effect and effect of acidified manure applied to soil, safety concern with acids, etc. are important. Okay, so let's see how long we are. We are already about 24 minutes. That's a good length. We are quite close to the end actually, so we should be able to finish it off with another podcast. I'm being very brief, but just giving you a broad sense of how many ideas are concerned, and detailed discussion of each approach is in the text that I'm skipping, but you can obviously follow up with if you're interested, and there are many interesting and valuable references as well should you want to do further research on these things. Okay, see you in the next podcast to wrap this up.